In the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, we have 3 barrel-proof whiskeys. We have the George T. Stagg Bourbon, we have the Thomas H. Handy Rye, and then we also have the King, the William Larue Weller. That is the one that seems to always elude me, and it did elude me this year. But with good friends and sample swaps, we have a sample of the 2024 William Larue Weller. You want to know how it is? Let's find out. So what exactly is William Larue Weller? Well, this right here is going to be barrel-proof Pappy Van Winkle. If you don't believe me, well, stick around and find out. What's going on, everybody? Nathan here with the Everyday Drinker, but he has a brand new video. Today, we're going to be doing a review of this right here. This is the 2024 William Larue Weller, coming in at 12 years and 6 months and 125.8 proof. I believe I got that right. If not, you guys will see the bottle on the screen so you can find out and see for yourselves. But let's dive into this, see what this thing is all about, because I'm so excited, right? Everybody has their personal preference on what they enjoy the most out of these, right? Everybody, some people might like the Thomas H. Handy the most, some people might like the George T. Stagg the most, but some people might like this refined wheated bourbon the most right here. And I am very excited to get into this. I've only had one pour of a William Larue Weller, and I absolutely enjoyed it. It was probably one of the best sips of whiskeys that I have ever had in my entire life. But the 2024 George T. Stagg is darn delicious, and so is the Eagle Rare 17 at 101 proof. But this right here is going to be 12 years, and I think it said 8 months, and 125-ish to 126 proof Pappy Van Winkle. It's the same thing. It's the same darn thing, just aged in different places, but it's the exact same mash bill that Pappy is. So let's get into the nose of the 2024 William Larue Weller and see what we're all working with. So when I dive into this nose, right, the first thing that I am getting is going to be that Weller profile, right? Sweet, refined, a little bit of a light brown sugar, but you're getting a really, really nice sweet cherry nose in there, and it is absolutely wonderful. But the one thing that this has that the other Weller products that you typically can find and get, you know, if you're lucky, is it has a really nice oak presence to it, and that's because it's going to be aged for a significant more amount of time than those regular Weller offerings. I'm getting a little bit more of a refined fruit note. Like this has like a jamminess to it, a thickness, a really nice concentrate of fruit notes, like plums and almost like apple compote in a way. Really, really nice nose. You definitely do get the alcohol off of this into the nose, but there's nothing wrong with that, right? You're supposed to get an alcohol kick on these higher proof whiskeys, and you're supposed to look past that and find those softer nuances that this has to offer. And I will tell you right now, on the nose, I don't find anything that I don't like. So before we get into the palate, make sure you guys drop that like, leave a comment down below on if you've ever had a sip of a William Larue Weller, or if you've had a Weller product before, like the full proof and stuff like that. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite of the releases are. Make sure you guys smash that subscribe button. We're on the road to 25,000 subscribers. Also, check the link out down below for the Patreon, because we've got samples coming in the mail right now as we speak. We're also doing a Patreon-only live stream tonight. So if you want to get in on that and have some fun and join in on the Patreon for as little as $2 a month, you can get in and have some fun with us tonight and drink some whiskey and find out what's going on in the future for this channel. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's dive in to the 2024 William Larue Weller. So the first thing that I'm going to say about this whiskey right here is it drinks hotter than 125, 126 proof. I would go as far to say that this might be drinking just as hot as the George T. Stagg, but we got to go back in one more time and see some more softer notes, because that thing just hit me like a mule in the face. The finish is still going though. Here we go. It's everything you're expecting in a wheated bourbon, right? It doesn't have a lot of spice to it. It's got a lot of sweetness to it. It's thick, it's viscous. It coats every nook and cranny in your mouth and on your palate. The second sip is nowhere near as hot. My palate, I guess, just needed to be acclimated to that. But it still has a little bit of that Kentucky hug going down in the back of your throat with the finish of this. Now, what I will say is the initial palate of this and the mid palate are absolutely wonderful. It's got a really nice sweet caramel note. Those soft cherries are in there. A little bit of that apple compote that I was finding on the nose transfers into the palate with a little bit of a rich honey note. This is really, really nice in that beginning and mid palate. But what I will say is diving into that finish, the finish isn't quite comparable to the beginning and mid palate. The finish has a little bit of a bitterness to it. It follows along with that oaky presence. Now, with working with wheat, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to age a wheated bourbon rather than a rye bourbon, right? It's harder to work with wheat. For some reason, it just doesn't age the same way that a rye style bourbon would age, or a rye in that fact. I guess because it's a softer grain or something along those lines. It's just a little bit harder. And I think that the oakiness of this whiskey comes out a little bit more compared to something like the George T. Stagg, where it has that rye grain in it that can combat and kind of... They kind of marry a little bit in a way, that rye and the barrel spice. With this, I think that the beautifulness of that beginning and mid palate are exemplified from the barrel, but I think that from that finish, the barrel kind of comes out a little bit more than the whiskey. Let's get back in for a third sip. This hits the tip of your tongue a little bit more as well when you keep going back in for a couple more sips. I get this has a beautiful, I keep saying it's got a beautiful mid palate, and it is scrumptious. It's, man, that the espresso note that comes off of this after going back in it a couple of times with that little bit of that crema on top of that espresso. You know, it's not a true deep dark coffee note, but you're getting that aroma of a coffee note. I love that out of this so much. And you are going to get a really nice sweet note. You know, you've got that honey in there. It's really, really nice. But the one kicker of this thing is going to be that finish, where it just falls a little flat in my personal opinion. Now, where would I recommend this? MSRP 100%. $500? I would probably go $500, but would I go more than 500? No. If you had the opportunity to pick up the William LaRue Weller or the George T. Stagg, I personally would go for the George T. Stagg from 2024. I think that it's a little bit, I think that the finish of the George T. Stagg just gives you a little bit more oomph and a little bit more love, more sweetness, and that's what I enjoy from that bottle right there. There is nothing wrong with this. If you enjoy a little bit of that bitterness on the back end from the oaky presence from a higher aged wheated bourbon, then this is going to be the one for you. You know, going back and forth into this glass and trying to find some more subtleties in this, you know, I would go as far to say that I am not impressed with this whiskey right here. I was very much looking forward to this thing blowing my socks off. But in the beginning, right, it blew my palate out with the proof. It drank a lot hotter than 125, 126 proof. The 2020 the 2022 William LaRue Weller sip that I had was leaps and bounds better than this. I was expecting this thing to just be absolutely amazing. Now it's a good, I would put it in the good, almost great tier. I will stand by and say that I still recommend the 2024 George T. Stagg over top of the William LaRue Weller. And hopefully, maybe the 2025 release of the William LaRue Weller is a little bit better. But hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you drop that like, leave that comment down below, smash that subscribe button, check the link out down below for the Patreon. But until next time, it's been Nathan with the Everyday Drinker. Cheers.